Hey, brothers and sisters. So my wife recently came across a meme on Facebook that was kind of alarming to her. It said the pagan roots of Christmas. And then it shows, you can see here, it shows a picture of the Christmas tree. And then it quotes Jeremiah 10:1-8. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest. They deck it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. And then underneath you can see that it's written December 25th equals birthday of the sun god, winter festival, Nimrod, Tammuz, etc. So I am well aware of the pagan roots of some of these things. But regarding Christmas, the question I want to pose is it wrong or sinful for a Christian to have a Christmas tree in their house? So what I wanted to do is go to that immediate context of Jeremiah 10 and read it in full and break some of the verses down a little bit. So in Jeremiah, starting in verse 1 of chapter 10, hear the word which the Lord speaks to you, O house of Israel. Thus says the Lord, do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them, for the customs of the people are futile. For one cuts a tree for the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers so that it will not topple. They are upright like a palm tree, and they cannot speak. They must be carried, because they cannot go by themselves. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, nor can they do any good. So when we look at that phrase, do not learn the way of the Gentiles, in context, at the end of Jeremiah 9, God pointed out that his people were like the uncircumcised nations in their lack of knowing God and their wicked conduct. Now here's a plea to separate themselves from the foolish customs of the nations that do not know God. It says, do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven. So through their use of astrology, ancient people often discerned signs and warnings from the sky, seeing fearful things in the signs of the heavens. Charles Feinberg comments, these signs of the heavens referred to are not of the sun, moon, and stars, or signs of the zodiac meant by God to be signs, Genesis 1, but unusual phenomenon like eclipses, comets, meteors, which were supposed to portend extraordinary events. Then he goes on to say in Jeremiah, for the customs of the people are futile, for one cuts a tree from the forest. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers so that it will not topple. So David Guzik says, Jeremiah described the pagan custom of cutting a tree, setting it in a special place, decorating it, and worshiping it. Now the worship of the tree is indicated by the warning, do not be afraid of them, in the sense that one would give reverence to a pagan idol. So Jeremiah mocked the idolatry of Judah, especially as it imitated the idolatry of the surrounding nations. Similar passage mocking the idolatry of the heathen are found in Isaiah 40 and 44. Yet it is difficult to read this description in condemnation of an ancient pagan custom and not immediately think of the custom of the Christmas tree as practiced in the modern Christian world. If, based on passages like this, Guzik goes on to say, a Christian would be convinced that they should not have a Christmas tree or even celebrate Christmas, then they should stand in their conviction. It is good to remember what Paul wrote, whatever is not from faith is sin, Romans 14, verse 23. Nevertheless, there are many reasons to believe that despite some similarities, the differences are even greater and do not prohibit the modern custom of the Christmas tree. Number one, Jeremiah spoke regarding the customs of the Gentiles, and in the modern world, the appropriate celebration of Christmas is an expression of belief in God and His Son, not a custom of unbelievers. Number two, Jeremiah spoke of believers borrowing customs of unbelievers. In the modern world, when an unbeliever has a Christmas tree, it is the case of unbelievers borrowing the customs of believers. Number 3, Jeremiah spoke of a tree regarded as an idol And properly understood, the modern Christmas tree is not an idol. If for a family it becomes an idol, it should be discarded. And lastly, Jeremiah spoke to a time in history when trees were often directly connected with idolatry, either literal trees or their representations. Jeremiah 2 verse 27 says, saying to a tree, "You are my father," and to a stone, "You gave birth to me. For they have turned their back to me and not their face. But in the time of their trouble they will arise and save us." So then he goes on to say in the text, "Do not be afraid of them," meaning the trees, "for they cannot do evil, nor can they do any good." So Jeremiah gently mocked the idolatrous worship of inanimate objects such as decorated trees. No particular reverence should be given to them. They are powerless to do anything, either good or evil. So going back to the meme that we saw on Facebook, I don't think we can directly apply the context of Jeremiah to our modern Christmas tree because, number one, Christians that put up, and assuming they're Christians that put up Christmas trees more or less do it out of celebrating the season or family tradition. They're not worshiping the tree like the surrounding nations of Israel did. They're not bowing down to it like an idol. They're not covering it with silver and gold. Much in the same way that people decorate their houses outside with Christmas lights. It's kind of that same idea. However, if for some reason you think, like this person that made the meme, you think that Christmas has a direct correlation to some pagan roots, some pagan worship, or maybe you came out of pagan spirituality and it offends your conscience, by all means, don't celebrate Christmas. But I think people take it too far, and they condemn all believers for putting up a tree in their house, decorating it, and putting presents under it and celebrating Christmas, when if you're a believer, you are observing the birth of Christ, the virgin birth of Christ, and honoring Christ, not the tree. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Comment below, and as always, Maranatha.